There you go.
Well, that's a nice,
All
nice big
yours.
announcement. And
Yeah.
hello to the people online as well. Feel free to put in your chats. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to. Hi, guys. Like he said, I'm Justin Armstrong. I'm nobody important, but he values me, and that makes me feel good. And of course, my wife back there, everybody look at her because she's an introvert. At the same time, so she's here to support me as well. So let's start off with a little bit about me. I didn't graduate high school. I took on something called California High School Proficiency, which is basically the younger equivalent of a GED. So graduated when I was 16, not because I was super intelligent or anything like that. That's not me boasting myself up, but I had a lot of life issues at the time between family issues, drug issues, all that kind of stuff. And then my life was job jumping from here to there. I counted at 22. I had 26 different jobs by the age of 22, starting at 15 and a half. And, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't understand how to make myself valuable in any way. I didn't know how to really sell myself and not in the bad way, of course, because that's bad. It's hard growing up not really knowing who you are and what you want to do. So a big part of my life at the age of 20, I actually got a job at In-N-Out Burger. I worked there for 18 years, just regular, cook, and worked management for a little while, which, was tough, but fun. And, a giant struggle. That was right in the middle of my career with In-N-Out. I did it for 9 years as manager, paid great. And I absolutely adored what the company did for me in teaching me that I'm important, and it was my first job that I felt valued as an employee. They paid well, which, like I said, is just, it's really uncommon for fast food, of course. I felt like the managers, at least where I was working, really wanted me to work hard and encouraged me, and didn't, want to constantly scold and put down. And that was a real big a boost for my confidence. After, working there for about a year, I ended up moving to a different city. And at that time, I was borrowed, is what they call it, at a different store. And the manager liked the work ethic, which I had learned from In-N-Out, and offered me full time. And that's just kind of when my time with In-N-Out Burger really took off. So currently I am a field support engineer, which is a fancy term for IT guy, for Covenant Living of Turlock and Covenant Living Communities and Services. We have, I want to say, 19 sites across the country. And I'm a regional lead in charge of the West Coast. So I've got a site up in Washington. I've got my site in Turlock, which I'm also the regular IT guy there. And then we have a Covenant Care at Home, which is kind of a sister site, San Diego and Santa Barbara as well. And, it's been an amazing joy to get to work for this organization, because once again, just like In-N-Out Burger, it really gave me a lot of value. My first IT job, and just a little bit about me, I do jump around a bit. I apologize. So there is a point to all of this at the end. My first IT job was at a school here in Modesto. And while it was a great stepping stone, I was literally just a computer technician. They really stretched the definition of what IT computer technician meant, in the terms that I was getting paid help desk pay, but they were asking me, as the only IT guy there, they were asking me to do things like build network infrastructure. Now, I knew nothing about networking infrastructure. They wanted me to build out applications and learn about different types of software that the staff wanted to use. They wanted me to implement new types of hardware like smart screens, and it was all exciting. And of course, I was really I was so emphatic about getting my first IT job that, I took the bull by the reins, so to speak. And ran with it. And, after 2 years, and I hate to say bad anything about any jobs, but sometimes you just really realize where there's red flags. But there's a saying that I've been saying a lot, and it's, when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, red flags look like just like flags. And does anybody not know what the term rose-colored glasses means? Everybody knows what it means? Okay, so Of course, online, if you guys don't know what it means, it means that basically you're looking at everything through a positive tint and trying to see the good in everything, no matter what it is. And honestly, it can be really detrimental, as detrimental as looking at everything in a negative fashion could be. If you're focusing on the negative in every single situation, that can be also a detriment to your personal health, as well as the people around you. You know, if I did that with my marriage, my wife would absolutely hate me. And well, she wouldn't hate me, she'd just deal with me. But you know, it was hard in that job because after the second year, after I finished that second year, I had actually asked for some help, asked for some assistance, maybe somebody higher, and it felt like it was a brush off. And you know, a year later, or 6 months after that, that time, I actually asked them again. And you know, once again, it was brushed off, and 6 months later, I ended up with this new job. I think the big thing about the new job that I'd like to express is that I applied to a job that I could not fill every single facet of the requirements. And that was really intimidating for me, being in a job where I felt like I was only an IT computer technician. I really felt like I was pushed down. My value was demeaned. And you know, applying for a job without the encouragement that I had, because I actually had a buddy of mine, he was in this class with me, not the final products class, but he was in Professor Phillips' class with me, and we grew close. He was the one that worked for the sister organization and told me to apply. He's like, it doesn't matter, I'll help you, I'll put out a good word for you. And you know, it was nice because, you know, went through the interview process, and you know, I got the job, and I found out I beat out two guys with this sounds like bragging, but I'm not. This is just to point out that, you know, I know my strength. Two other people with bachelor degrees. And the other thing about me is I don't have a degree. I never finished JC. I don't have my AA. I don't have my AS. I'm about 18 units away. At this point in my career, it's kind of a wishy-washy whether I'm going to finish it up or not, because being a regional lead, you know, being in a position where I get to encourage others and lift others up and help them see their value. You know, I think I found my groove, my place. And it's the reason that they decided to go with me is because when I went on campus, you know, knowing my value, which is communication, which is, you know, I may not be a great public speaker. I'm definitely not. I'm nervous as heck. I'll being up here, trust me. But you know, that one-to-one interaction going on in this community, which is a whole bunch of, you know, elderly residents. You know, you've got to go and meet with these individual people, and being able to walk up to somebody and just say hi and make conversation with somebody, and that's my big strength. So, you know, the big thing there is that knowing, even with that job where I was pushed down on my skill set, making me feel like I wasn't good enough because I didn't know how to do network infrastructure. I didn't know how to do application, you know, well, not necessarily development, but implementation as well as the next guy, and being the only guy, you know, my worth was not there. But I still knew at this job that my strength was communication, positive communication, lifting people up, and hopefully helping others to see their value. And in the interview, I was able to emphasize that, and the skill set can come later. And a big thing, you know, I keep saying a big thing, I apologize. You know, understanding that, you know, what you can bring to the table and that everything else you can learn in the long run is huge. And, you know, Dale asked me to say, you know, what would I, if I knew now what I knew then, what would I tell my back self? It's finding that value and making that your strength. And, you know, whether it is a skill set, you know, whether it is communication, whether those are pretty much the two big areas, you know, those focus on those, and you know, make those your passion. And I know, Dale, you did show them that video, right? Had them watch that video. Okay, good. So, you know, like he was talking about with the Steve Martin video, where, you know, what's the line?
So good they can't ignore you.
Yeah, so good they can't ignore you. And, you know, my strength doesn't have to be your strength. You know, my ability to do skills. You guys could probably do a lot of things so much better than me. And you will be valued in the fields that you go into. And, you know, I think at the very end of this, anything you take away from this is that each individual has your own value, and that you don't compare it to anybody else's. You know, you could have a great skill set at developing apps. I don't. But, you know, my strength might be communication, but, you know, it might be a little bit, I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm sorry, I'm pointing you out. Like, I'm using you as an example. We'll use my wife. So it's knowing what you have and what you can provide to those around you that will really show those people around you your value. And then I'm going to bring out my notes because, yeah, we need those for a second. So, okay, yeah. A big other area is knowing your imperfections as well, and being accepting of everybody else's. And I am 100% imperfect. You know, ask my wife. I know I keep pointing at her, but she knows, and that's okay. But we also have to be accepting of other people's imperfections. If any of you guys end up in a position of leadership, or even in a position of needing leadership, your leaders will have imperfections. And if we can give them the same grace and mercy that we're asking for as we're learning and growing, it will make everything much easier. I'm sure all of you guys work in a workplace where everybody wants to do is complain about the manager. But if you try to have that perspective of, you know, they all came up from somewhere just like me, it really can help your growth as a person, and even as with your interpersonal skills. Other notes. Okay. So comparing others to the expectations, I think I did touch on that a little bit. I can barely live up to my own expectations, so I could never expect anybody else to live up to mine. And that gives that extra grace. You know, like my wife and I, we're different people. I'm an extreme extrovert. My wife is an not extreme introvert. She's introverted at certain times. She's a teacher. She's great with kids, and I love it. And I love hearing how the kids are really touched by her attitude. You know, but I can't expect her to go into a room full of people like this and just talk about something, you know, like I'm doing. You know, she could probably handle it probably better than me at some areas, but you know, that's that level of knowing different people's levels of ability and being able to help them grow through that. And another item is it's okay to turn down the position if it's moving up. Was that touched in the video that I watched? Or did I watch that somewhere else recently?
Yeah, that's actually part of it. It's okay to turn down.
Yeah. So the video didn't touch on something called the Peter Principle. Has anybody heard about the Peter Principle? Not Peter Tingle, because that would be Spider-Man. But so the Peter Principle is basically this. All of you guys have a skill set. Every single one of us has an amazing skill set. We get a job that utilizes that skill set. We excel at that job. We get promoted. We still have an amazing skill set. It's obviously not excelling as much because we were excelling down here. Now we're meeting or just barely above. And then what happens is you get promoted again. And now you're either meeting or just a little bit below expectations. And now basically what happens is you've gone beyond your skill and the ability to really be an effective employee or employer. And that's why you see people that get into management positions that, hey, they were amazing as an employee or amazing as a team member, but they jump into that position and they fail. They're flailing, they're a fish out of water, they don't know how to handle it. I was that at In-N-Out Burger, and it was horrible. And while they accepted me for 9 years in that position, you know, and I just had all this energy to try to be better, but you know, I realized in hindsight that you know, I held on so long because it was a great paying job. In my job now, it's different because I'm not micromanaging. I'm macro managing. I'm basically saying, hey, are you doing the task that we did? If you need help, how can I help you, lift you up, and all that kind of stuff. But I was hesitant to accept this position as a lead because I didn't want to rise above my actual ability level. Because of my history, I knew that, hey, I may not be as an effective leader, but with the other leaders that were really encouraging me to apply, they said, well, this is your skill set. You are an encourager. You're helpful. You love to lift people up. And we think that is going to be a great asset with the other leads who might be better at structured stuff and who might be better at, disciplinary stuff. I'm not a big fan of disciplinary stuff. I have to, I will, doesn't mean I like it. But, jumping into this job, if I were to go above right where I am right now, I don't think I could be as effective. Does that mean that I couldn't be effective in 5 years down the road when I've improved my skill sets when it comes to the structured areas and organizing policies? Sure. But right now, it's important to know that the Peter principle keeps me where I'm at and keeps me level-headed enough to know it's not just about more money. Because accepting a job, sure, it might pay me an extra, 60% a year. It doesn't mean that I will be happy doing it. And, that's my passion right now, is helping my residents, the elderly, helping my staff, and, helping my staff, as in the other people on my team, and then helping my actual employees really grow and see their value as well. And, that's where I feel like I'm good at right now. And I don't want to jump into that position where, like my last job, I was like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I'm the only IT guy and I don't know what to do next. And I know that was a lot of quick talking, but I'd like to pause here and please, do you guys have any questions?
Have you ever had a Groundhog Day where one day is the same as the next, or is it every day different?
For my previous job at the school, yes. For this job, absolutely not. I work on 23 acres of community. We have, I want to say, 200 something residents, 250 residents in our community. And then somewhere about 300 staff, obviously not all of them at the same time because we are a medical facility. We have, night and day shifts. What I do love about my job is that it is Monday through Friday. So that's a big, I'm spoiled there, sorry. But every day I come into something different. And, whether it be me accidentally pulling out a fiber cable and breaking the tips off and taking down the skilled nursing facility, to something as simple as, the applications engineered pushed a bad image of our virtual desktop and we have to go fix everybody on campus. It happens. It's not, but what's great about my organization though, is that when these mistakes happen, they're extremely accepting of them. I took down fiber to skilled nursing, which is probably the most important, building, because it's constant med passes, handing out medications to staff, or not to staff, obviously, to residents, making sure therapy is being able to communicate and log all the data that they need to communicate. And I took them down for 6 hours because I broke a fiber cable and I couldn't figure out. I had to call a local vendor to come out, which cost us $3,000 because there's an emergency to fix it and run some new cable and everything. And they just make fun of me. They just said, so if anytime network went down at any other site for the next year, they say, was Justin there and did he pull some fiber? And it didn't feel negative because the initial reaction was, okay, we'll get it taken care of. It wasn't a big deal. Granted, it sucks spending money. I hate it. My viewpoint is with any organization, the more money we save in the long run, the more money the employees can get, whether it's IT or, just the wait staff, dining, CNAs, any of those positions. So, having that mindset, it was really freaky at first, especially since that was my first big issue.
Yeah.
And going back to the imperfect, we're all imperfect. And if you want other people to accept yours, and it's funny, when you're out in the business world, you know, it's the joke that everybody usually makes one big mistake at least one time. If you make it twice, then there's a bigger issue. But you know, if yeah. Any other failed? You got more questions? Does anybody else have questions?
No, go ahead.
So if you have a security breach, who's the fault? And I assume you said you're the network admin?
I'm not the network admin. So yeah, my title is Field Support Engineer Regional Lead for West Coast. So the bonus about this job, if it was the past job at the school, it would have fallen on me because we didn't really have anybody else. This job, we actually have a whole security team. We have an applications team, system admin team, network team. It's nice because there is a lot of support. And, you know, that's one big thing you want to find in any job is a job that has good support, you know, and if you're a one-man team, it can really be dragging because then you're only you feel like you're the only one ever doing anything, and that can be bad. But in the case of a security breach, it would fall on the security team and as well as the on-site technician. So like we had a possible one that happened to us where we saw an email came in that it was really suspicious. And it actually made it through the filter because it was sent by a third-party company that did get hacked. So basically they called me and said, hey, we're disabling a person's access for a little bit. We just need to make sure everything's good. Thankfully, everything was perfectly fine. You know, and then we reached out to the third-party company and let them know, hey, there was a security breach. You know, your team sent out some emails. You might want to get a check on that. And they're like, okay, thanks. And I think they had already taken care of it. They already knew about it. But yeah, does that answer your question?
What I'm getting at is like, would you be the liaison? Say for example, say I was a nurse working at a facility on a orderly or whatever. I don't know what the term is, and I was just writing extra copies down of old people's information because you know they throw out their socials and all this stuff, and then eventually somebody catches on. Hey, this guy. You know, every time they send social, we write something down on paper or whatever. And then, so I'm transmitting the network traffic. Do you have cops come in? Do you have the FBI come in? I mean, what I'm getting at is, do they talk to you? Do they talk to your boss's boss or?
I think they would talk to anybody that would they specifically would deem relevant. That's kind of a hard question to answer on my case because I've never experienced it. But if there is, usually if there's a government agency involved, they usually go through central office and then it comes down the hill.
Oh.
So it just depends on the organization, really. I can't give I wish this isn't me obfuscating the answer. This is me saying I don't know the right answer because, well, I don't know everything, thankfully. Of course, you had a question.
I was just gonna ask, when you were here, what classes were you taking?
Mostly general ed, of course. Linux, I love Linux. Programming, Python, Java, and you know, most of the computer science aimed classes. It was so long ago that I don't remember. And here's the funny thing is, you know, I mentioned that I didn't graduate high school, and I had, you know, the California High School Proficiency, which could get me into college, but I didn't know how to get into college. You know, I didn't know. I came in a family that I didn't know how to save money or anything like that. And it's funny because my wife actually, she's the one that signed me up for MJC and got me in and helped me sign up for classes and everything. And she really, really helped me help my career take off. And she was super encouraging through, you know, the struggles of course, you know, working a full-time job as a manager where I'm working 9 hours a shift, 5 days a week, coming home at, you know, all hours because those shifts were crazy. And then of course, trying to work through the schedules here and taking 15 to 18 units at a time, just because I wanted to get through and not have to spend any money because you get the Pell Grants or whatever it was at the time. So my wife is an educator. She has her bachelor's, and of course her encouragement, her strength is encouraging others to get their education. You know, and while my story, I got lucky in the sense that while I got most of my education, where I landed just really kind of took off, and getting to become this position where I'm, you know, I'm I'm the West Coast lead, and getting to travel to all these other sites. It's never something I ever saw myself doing, but she is definitely a huge, I'll call her a booster rocket to me, and she gave me that lift off and just kept pushing and kept pushing. And, it was nice to really have that backing. And, that it's funny because I actually wanted her to be here today so she could hear me say it out loud. She's turning red right now, so that's even better. But yeah, I am a lucky success story. I will never encourage somebody to not take education, the education route. But, really just find what you like to do, what your skill set is, and something you're good at, and make that your passion, as opposed to hoping that what you're jumping into, like me, I thought photography would be a passion for a while. I love photography. I still do. I still think it's fun. But it couldn't be something that I wanted to be good at, because I wanted to be good at it right away. I wanted to be able to just jump in and know everything. Programming, it's a pain in the behind. But it was fun. And I think I even told Dale when I was going to college here, I wanted to become a programmer. And he pointed us to Google I/O in the early days. And of course, all the free stuff you get from Google I/O, made me a big Android person, so I guess it was one of those. Google knew how to sell me, and that worked. And I'm the product now. Great.
I have a question.
Well,
Hi.
Hi, sorry, I had a quick question. So what's the preferred programming? Is it JavaScript or Python out in the field?
I don't have an answer for that because I'm not a programmer.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I think Dale would know better than I do, because our apps team, they are the ones that do all the programming on the back end. But I would say broaden your horizons, whatever it is. Learn a little bit of everything. And then when you find that job that you can sell them, hey, I'm able to learn these things. These are the things that I learned. If you want me to focus on one specific thing, then I will focus on one specific language.
Got it. Because I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, there's C++. What other ones? I know I've done a little bit of Python, C++, and JavaScript. And also, I mean, obviously it's a bit of a gamble depending on what type of job you're looking into. I mean, a lot of companies require those as well.
Yeah, it's really hard to figure out which one you want to get into, because once you, like you already hit the nail on the head, it depends on what job you want to get. That is dependent on which programming language you want to use. And even then, you do two different types of companies that have similar products, but may use completely different programming languages. So, if you want to end up focusing on C++ and then you want to go out and find a job, or focus on which one, hey, if you like C++ more because it's easier and you understand the language better, focus on that and make that your passion, and then just go out and find the job that really fits your need and fits something that's going to make it so you feel accomplished.
Yeah. I like to have, at least some of those credentials in my belt, but I'm more into networking. So I did a little bit of Cisco and
Good.
networking. Yeah. So that definitely is, I mean, cybersecurity is where pretty much one of the fundamentals that I'd like to focus more in.
And they need that heavily right now. I will tell you that right now. Cybersecurity is crazy. I saw a report 2 weeks ago that said in the last month, from 2 weeks before, phishing attempts and targeted phishing attempts had gone up 423%. And I don't remember if that was over the previous month or over the same year, the last year. But I mean, for us right now, we're seeing it. We're sending out emails on the regular, just saying, hey, keep an eye out, for these signs. And we have training and everything like that. And of course, Kevin Mitnick just died. So there's, but yeah, focus on that cybersecurity if you can, because it is, me personally, I mean, I'm not hiring for that because that's not my field, but it's the way it is, it's just ramping up and it's becoming so rampant. And yeah.
What's your,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry. What's your opinion now that they're using AI with that?
It's scary AF, I will say that. We did a presentation for our residents. So we do something called Tech Talks, where we go and create, a PowerPoint presentation for whatever residents want to come in, and we can teach them on Alexa devices and just simple stuff, the smart devices, Bluetooth, all the kind of things, and understanding some of the technology terms. We did one on AI. And one of my coworkers out in Colorado, he's the one that got to make that PowerPoint. So basically the way we do it, we rotate who's going to make the PowerPoint and then send it out to everybody. That way we're not overwhelmed with work at each site. And he paid for a quick subscription to easily record his voice. He just read off a script. He just picked up some Reddit page and read into it. And then he typed it in, and I could not tell the difference between him and the real thing in playback. And that was really scary. The amount of scams that are coming up because of deep fake videos. Mixing deep fake video with I don't know if it's deep audio, whatever, deep fake audio. It's scary accurate. And I don't know if you guys know, but there's been some scams that have been coming up lately where, say somebody makes a YouTube video and that person enters their audio into this AI audio creator. Well, that person also does a targeted phishing attempt, or at least targeted social engineering, where they go and find out more about that person's family. Because everybody has a social media, almost everybody has a social media presence. And so if you're on YouTube, you more than likely have one. And there are tools out there that you can find out where somebody lives. You can find out their family members. They can find out their grandparents' phone number. And then you can call them using the AI voice and say, I've been kidnapped, I'm being held hostage, go to Walmart, buy $500 in gift cards, or this person's gonna take me and you're never gonna see me again. And these have been successful attempts. And, for me, my big thing is making sure our residents are protected and they know, because, it's scary finding out that a resident gets scammed out of such and such money, and it happens. But yeah, AI and cybersecurity, it's getting scarier and scarier. I don't have an answer for how
Yes,
far.
they're getting pretty sophisticated out there.
Yeah,
So it's pretty scary. And yes, I've heard of those type of incidents where they replicate voices of people asking for help when indeed it's not really them.
yeah. And of course, my tip is if anybody ever calls you, tell them you'll call them back, because you can obviously fish a phone number, or not fish, spoof a phone number. Even at my workplace, we use voice over IP. I can tell it to call from my wife's phone, and I'll call my wife from my wife's phone, and she'll be like, how am I calling myself? And she's smarter than that. But yeah,
Oh, thank you for answering that.
of course. Thank you, Juan. I appreciate you asking. Any other questions?
Do you use a ticketing system for all the problems, or do you just kind of, people see you in the hallway, oh, by the way?
It's the bane of IT and ticketing systems. Everybody hears the jokes. We do. We do. We use SolarWinds to manage portal, but it's hard because everybody makes a joke. I'm not going to do work without the ticket. Sure, give me one moment. I'll answer his. But yes, we do. I'm really good at getting my staff to put in tickets, but I think the goofiness of, hey, throw me a ticket afterwards. I'm one of those guys that I'm always okay with doing the work, as long as you're giving me credit. And if I voice it in a way of saying, hey, I'm valuing your time by giving you that moment of my time, which I'm being pulled in 3 different directions. You should be willing to give me 30 seconds to punch in a ticket and get it taken care of. So yeah,
I won't forget.
yeah, which they do, and that's okay. And then I'll put in the ticket as them, and then I'll put in a second ticket that says I put in a ticket for you. So they get 4 emails.
Yeah.
How long were you at your current company?
Right now, it's been, let's see, 3 years, 10 months, just under.
And that was at peak in the SolarWinds.
Yes, there was a SolarWinds hack, but we weren't really we didn't really have any issues with that, thankfully. Our security team, my security, our security guy is like over the top good. So he really keeps up on that kind of stuff. I didn't look into the information on the SolarWinds hack. I don't know a lot about what went down or everything, because my focus isn't big on security, as long as my security team is doing their job. Okay. Anybody else? I got 5 people here who haven't asked a question. No, she's like, no. Okay, well, if I don't have any more questions, I mean, I'm happy to stick around and chat with any of you guys one-on-one.
Budgets are.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you give us an example of what you macro manage?
So from a central's office standpoint, we sometimes give little tasks here and there. And my job is to, yes, make sure that people are doing that, but by encouraging people and telling them in a way of saying, I'm here to help you if you don't know what to do. And letting them know that I'm an asset for them. I'm not just going to throw them out into the field. That's, to me, that's more macro managing as opposed to, did you get the job done? Did you get the job done? And then, of course, you know, while we have check-in times, you know, I do one-on-ones with my staff. Every 2 weeks, I do a one-on-one check-in. What questions do you have? Do you have any issues with these tasks? Are you going to be late? If you are, that's perfectly fine. You know, and that's, I think that being able to be flexible and gracious on deadlines, that's a big thing for me. Is that, sure, yeah, we have a hard deadline. It may be the 14th. But if you communicate with me in advance that you're going to miss that deadline for whatever reason, I'm going to give you that grace and say, okay, well, you could have 3 more days. So, you know, encouraging that communication beforehand is where the macro comes in, because I'm not just sitting there waiting for that deadline to come and say, did you get it done? I'm saying, hey, if you need help on this, just encouraging you, you know, and being there for my staff. I have my own site to manage as well, but I do my best to never miss an opportunity to make sure that they feel supported and make sure that they have the help that they need and the tools to do their job. Because if I'm not effective in making sure they have the tools and the knowledge to do their job, then I'm not an effective leader. And then I become a micromanager, because then it's just, you didn't do the job. Why didn't you do this? You know, and that's, I don't know, does that help answer your question? Does it make sense? Macromanager isn't really a term. I just kind of like, I ran with it because it's the opposite of micro.
That's fun, because I met a few of you guys. You're kind of when I say this, man, yeah, you guys seem to have good nature behind it. Because the only times I've ever heard that what you just said was it was a very passive aggressive part of somebody. Like say somebody, so say I was your employee and I just did something, and you're usually the response would be, do you need tools and help to do your job? You just look at something, you know, it's usually just very pointed hard.
Yeah.
But I met a few guys, you guys genuinely like, you need help with anything. It's almost like meant it, not like a rhetorical question, like, let's know if you need anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just it's interesting because you start seeing more of you guys. It used to be rhetorical at best, or loaded, you know.
Loaded questions, pointed questions. Yeah,
Loaded
jabs. Yeah. Yeah. We us encouragers really like to be there for staff, you know, and I'm gonna brag a little. So when I got this job, I realized we were using to manage SolarWinds for a lot of our documentation on policies or how-tos. Searching a ticketing system for a Word document that cannot be updated because, or may not be updated or may not be up to date is a pain in the tuchus. Like, whoa. So I came up with the idea of setting up a wiki within Teams. And I really ran with it and created all the different subject matters. And I worked with I worked with the different departments and said, hey, are you willing to throw this in there? And, you know, once again, the great thing about my organization is, you know, like my networking team, my Wi-Fi guy, he is amazing. If I ask him, even though, you know, we're equals, you know, but he's in networking, so he gets paid more than me. But if I say, hey, are you willing to throw this in the wiki for me because you updated the guest password? Are you willing to type up some new instructions because we updated how guests need to connect to the network, or how residents need to connect to the network, or how we create accounts on the back end? Just immediate, yeah, absolutely, throw me a ticket. So of course I throw him a ticket. But, you know, it's, for me, it was making sure that not only did I have the tools, because I realized that in that situation, that the tools that were available weren't always perfect, you know, and we grow as an organization. And if you jump into, when you jump into any organization, because I'm sure every single one of you will jump into an organization, realize that documentation is not perfect. But if we sit and complain, but don't try to find solutions, we end up becoming part of the problem. Because all it does is it just becomes this recursive complaint cycle. Oh, we can't do anything because nothing's being fixed. We can't do anything because the information is not up to date. But if it's one little block of code or one little block of instructions that you can throw in there and say, hey, I retype this up and send it to your boss and say, hey, you know, what do you think of this? Can we run with this? And then you become a problem solver, and you become somebody who becomes invaluable to the organization. Not that we're not all replaceable, but you know, we do want to become invaluable to any place that we work. And the other half of it is, when I got this job, the guy who hired me, David, absolutely amazing leader. I absolutely love him. And, you know, he and I became equals for a little while, and they just opened up a new position for him as a national FSE lead. So now there's 3 regions and then the national. But he always said that even if this wasn't where I wanted to keep my career, that he wanted to make sure that I had the tools to go where I needed to go. So if I wanted to go into networking, whether it was with the organization or outside the organization, he wanted to make sure that I had the tools. So every one of us, every one of the FSEs have an ongoing account with Pluralsight, which is it's an expensive tool, but it's a great tool to learn different things. So like for me, I want to learn a little more about Active Directory. Do I want to go into Active Directory and be, you know, an SME on Active Directory? No, but it would help my job be easier. And if that helps me be better, you know, say down the road, this job ends up not being for me, or I grow out of it and I move on, I know that this organization and every single one of the people in the organization, including my direct supervisor, encouraged me to become more knowledgeable in these different areas. And this year he's encouraging me to do networking. So
You mentioned Pluralsight. How much does it cost?
I think we're paying $200 a month or $100 a month. I don't recall. I think it's $100 a month.
You folks, if you're not part of HCM, you should be. It's for $19 a year. You get access to Pluralsight.
Oh, what's HCM?
The Association of Computing Machinery.
Okay, for those of you online, he said ACM, Association of Computer Machinery.
Machinery. Yeah.
Okay, and then you get for $20 you get Pluralsight for free. So yeah, definitely. There's so many different courses and so many different avenues you can go through, and you know, you can take a 20-hour course on Active Directory or however long you need for networking or anything like that, boosting that skill set and preparing for your certifications. And certifications are extremely important. I will say that. For me, when I got the job, they told me I had to get my A+ certification within 6 months, you know, and what's great is they actually paid for it once I got it. So that was a big benefit. And to me, it's a huge thing, because, you know, I really feel like the organization has a trust in me. And one other thing is that I like to say that this job for me is the first time I feel like an adult. You know, everybody questions their abilities at some point in their lives. Everybody questions their value. And, you know, this job I came in, and even though I wasn't in you know, the FSE lead title, I was a leader on my site because I got to be the IT guy, the representative for central office. And, you know, I got to surround myself by people that really wanted to lift me up, even if they weren't in my department. They wanted to communicate with me. And so, you know, my hope for you is using your values, your strengths, to put yourself in that position that you can surround yourself with other people who are going to lift you up. Because if not, they're going to drag you down, and it's going to be, once again, a recursive cycle that you might drag them down some and you drag them. You know, I think you guys know what I was trying to say there. Yeah, stumbled over my words.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes.
what I've also noticed in the workplace is there's less and less sarcasm. Sarcasm used to be one of the way you got.
Oh, yeah.
Was just the way things were. Now, what's happening is that post-COVID, I've noticed is that people don't take sarcasm.
Uh-huh.
They don't know how to identify it.
Yeah,
And I go, whoa, so you gotta, don't BS with somebody if they can't take sarcasm. And that just takes time getting to know people. Sometimes it's the English second language.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's other things, or it's just, they weren't ever raised with it.
Mhm.
I remember sarcasm growing up, listening to my parents and their friend all cut each other down
Mhm.
for the fun of it.
Yeah, yeah.
That was just
And I think-
the way they-
I think the point is here is knowing when to be sarcastic and when not to be.
Right.
Like it's funny because I know who I can talk to and make jokes with at work. But you also have to be respectful and understand that, like for me, the network guy that I was talking about, the Wi-Fi guy, he was my predecessor. So he worked at my site, Sherlock. And then he got the job in networking, which opened up the job for me to apply to. He also knew my buddy Tom that I went to college here with. So they kind of worked together to try to help me, encourage me a little. And he is a lot like me, where I can handle sarcasm. I can handle it at the right time, the right place, but knowing when I can handle it is important. And he and I are very good at that. And I can tell when he needs to be lifted up because he has doubts too. He may be successful. He may be doing absolutely amazing, but he's not perfect. He makes mistakes. So what my strength is in encouragement is knowing that, when he makes those mistakes, hey, you're still doing great. It doesn't matter. You can, as long as you go beyond those mistakes and learn from them and build yourself up, it doesn't matter. And now 2 weeks down the line, once he's gotten over those mistakes, am I going to slam him for it? Like pulling fiber cable? Absolutely. Anything else? Any other questions? I'm here.
So since you said you didn't maybe have the right amount of qualifications for your current job, how did you like sell yourself to the employer? Other than your one-on-one skill?
Honestly, it was just it was mostly, I do have some skills, 3 years of experience at a school. And in that time, I did learn some networking infrastructure. I learned, about the Meraki networks, Wi-Fi networks, and the switches, as minimal as that was. And of course, I got a Google certification, which, even though it's not Active Directory, which is what they needed at my place, I don't need a certification. A lot of the back end account creations and allowances for staff or students did translate over to that. So they were able to see that I was willing to grow and improve myself in my current position. And then, like I said, definitely the communication skill was a big thing for me. Yeah. My wife's back there nodding her head. He talks a lot.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay. Anybody else? I was pointing at the screen just.
Hiring.
Not for IT.
So I do have one more question. What level of networking are you willing to or want to commit to?
I think I'm willing to get my certification, only because it will help strengthen my on-site abilities. And, I don't want to become a network engineer. It's fun, but it's really not my skill set. I'm okay with being a jack of all trades and master of none, because, where I work, the working with the residents and the staff on different levels of thing, that's my forte. And you really want to strive to stay where your forte is, your strength is. But yeah, to directly answer, I do want to get my networking certification, and that's my goal for the end of the year at least.
Okay, A+ or the Cisco?
Just Network Plus, right? Isn't it?
Oh, network. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So I do have my
Okay.
A plus already.
wait, I'm sorry.
I do have my A plus already.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, yeah, because I believe there's like two types. There's an A plus where you get into like there's ladders where you can get into networking. I mean, the first one is like basic computing and IT. Then
Yep.
there's levels to it, and then there's Cisco, which is Cisco Academy, and all you base off is just Cisco proprietary routers and switches.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of different areas you can go to. A plus is the basic. That's just basic computing, like you said. Net plus is basic networking. And then, you know, when, like you said, Cisco would be, you can go with Cisco Meraki and just focus only on the networking hardware for Cisco Meraki, and you can get qualifications in Microsoft and you know, Microsoft Server if you want to go down to more in-depth things. Those aren't things that I'm really looking into for myself. You know, once again, because my strength is on site with all the different staff and having fun there. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for asking. Okay, Dale? You want to take back over?
Looking at the CompTIA website, and they keep adding certifications. I don't know if you folks know about testout.com. That's when I teach the Linux class, I use that.
You want to talk in front of the camera so they can hear you?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that might be right.
Yeah, they got bought out.
They CompTIA bought them. So CompTIA and TestOut are now working together. So they will be doing,
Did you read that guy's statement?
pardon?
Did you read the CEO's statement? It's definitely a full of sarcasm. You're looking.
Yeah, I did catch it, and it's like, okay, they're both based in Salt Lake. And the TestOut, when the guy had started it years ago and he tracked with CompTIA and he was ready to retire. So he basically was approached by CompTIA saying, hey, you know, want to buy me? So he did. But TestOut is this is where you as a student, once you get any course, say like you take the Linux class. Oh yeah, should probably do screen share.
I got you.
Once you take any course, you can get the other courses for that discounted price. I don't remember what those numbers are top of my head, but when you go to pass your CompTIA certifications, as long as you have your student email account, you can get 50 to 70% off the certifications. And you just go to I think it's Academic CompTIA, or is it Academy CompTIA? I can never remember, but they can work it. Now, the nice thing about these classes that they have, like, for example, the Linux Plus here, what they have done is that they've made their certification, the Linux Pro, harder than the Linux Plus. So if you pass the Pro, you're going to pass Linux Plus.
Look right under it, it says preparing.
If you look right under the bullet points, it says prepares for test out Linux.
Yeah.
Pro and CompTIA. Even though they merge, they still do not give you the CompTIA one. You have to go for the CompTIA.
Oh yeah, yeah. The websites, there's too much. Yeah, it's going to take a while to get the two sites together.
There was one advantage though, if you were genuinely going for the training, they actually offer it. The CompTIA website, they give you like a practice manual and they'll tell you school that you can go to. So that is one advantage. But the CompTIA certification is the actual one, and employment before when you
Right.
get in my license, because the test out one, they even straight up said, we are not equivalent.
Right.
But they do give you the actual course. That was one advantage.
Right.
CompTIA did not do that.
Yeah, the test out has a bunch of practice exams. That helps you get the voicing. Any certification that you take, it's going to have a different voice on the test. And you need to learn how to listen to those voices, so to speak, on those tests. So you know how to answer the question. Like I'm a PMI, project management professional. I took the test first time, didn't pass. Then I went to a week-long boot camp and I found out which questions are wrong that you need to answer incorrectly to get it marked correctly. So they actually walked you through some tricky spots in the exam that you would never know. Okay, so that's what, you know, Test Out kind of brings to the table is you're getting the voicing of the certification and a certification, which is the Linux Pro certification. And problem is employers don't know what it is. There is a guarantee that if somebody comes in with Linux Pro and they can't do the job of a Linux Plus, the employer can get paid. So I thought that was an interesting, they're putting money on the table to say that the Linux Pro. Now, I compared the two for my, you know, not in great detail. Linux Pro is just a little bit more difficult because they're more scenario based. So that means here's a real problem, fix it. Okay. And so that's the Red Hat. The Red Hat, the top level Red Hat one is tough. That one is, I guess, the golden standard for Linux now. But I have too many. I don't need another one. Okay. But CompTIA has also worked extensively for industry, with industry, saying, okay, we're going to put together this certification and let's talk about what you need as industry for an entry level position in networking. That's what CompTIA is for, entry level job skills. So you don't blow something up and you learn the glossary to be able to communicate with other net admins. And of their tests, I would say the Linux is tougher because there's just so much more content than some of the other ones. But they do have, CompTIA does have this penetration testing now. They've got a lot of them. And as you move up and you get the networking plus, security plus, penetration testing, you start getting these higher level ones, they get a lot tougher because again, there's just tons of content. And you can study for all this stuff on ACM, both through Pluralsight and what they used to call, it was called Skillsoft, now it's called Percipico, I think. And there's gazillions of books. So, yeah. So, how's that for more useless information?
It's never useless. You save money.
Yeah.
A lot of information.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if I still have access to my student email.
Yeah, you're gonna have to find your student email somewhere.
You have to get it reactivated.
Ah, dang it.
I don't
I think
think,
These certifications,
yeah, it's not hard. I think
Oh, you just have to.
you just call them and say, I was a student here and I need to check my records.
Oh.
And they'll set you up and they'll get you connected and you'll have a current email.
No,
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, because I don't think they don't have a expiration policy on student email like other schools do.
Mhm.
So
For years.
who knows how long they'll stay alive?
So they'll keep your garbage, but they'll be active. So like if you try to log in after 3 years, it'll say not found.
Oh,
So if you just go to the industry website, apply, don't take classes, and so it shouldn't cost you anything, and then they'll just react.
yeah, you can do it that way too. Yeah. And quick phone call to the help desk. So on that note. All right. Any other question?
these certifications are only good for a couple years. Is that right? Or they've increased the,
I turned you down a little bit. Hold on a second. What was the question?
these certifications are good for 2 years and they have to renew, correct?
The certifications are good for how many?
Oh,
years?
how long? It depends. which certification from which companies. Most of them require ongoing professional development units to keep them up to date. There are a few out there that don't require that. But most of them do. You have to work in the industry. It's a creative writing exercise. You kind of have to say, okay, this is what I've been doing over the past 6 months. And here's the hours I log for this sort of thing. Okay, that's pretty common for a lot of these things.
Yeah, for me, when I got my A+, I'm speaking loud so he can hear me. When I got my A+ after the job, and honestly, the job experience is the reason that I got the A+. The new job, the old job, it wasn't enough experience even. They only required me to get it once, and they don't care if I get it again because it shows that I had the knowledge,
Right,
and any other knowledge they need me to have, they teach me.
right. And that's generally what you'll find. You'll need the cert to get into the job, but you don't necessarily have to keep the certs current unless you're working for a consulting firm. And that becomes a sales pitch for the consulting firm.
Mhm.
So I've got my PMI, but it's in a retired status right now. So if I wanted to get back into the industry, I'd pay a fee. And then I'd have to document project management experience once I took it out of retirement, and have to do the writing exercises saying, this is what I'm doing. Because if you work as a project manager, generally you're going to be working for some consulting firm. They hire you out to go do big installations of whatever. And everybody should learn about project management because you will be subjected to it.
Even if your position doesn't normally handle it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me with the school, is that it was just,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, I wasn't prepared, and the expectation was, they knew I didn't have any of the technical knowledge, but that expectation that I could learn it in a year, how to deploy and manage a whole network in a brand new building that has no network infrastructure. And, you'll find another, just like tickets in IT being a joke, communication with IT before deploying solutions. You'll find a lot that departments will, for a great example, department wants to move 12 desks, 12 phones, and 3 fax machines to a different part of the building. But they think it's just moving things over. They forget about, especially a fax machine, if it's using a POTS line, a plain old telephone service line, that has to be repunched down. If it's networking, you have to make sure that the network port is where they want it. If it's telephones, if it's VoIP, hey, it's great because it's nice because the configuration usually follows the phone. But if a department doesn't communicate with IT, then the right questions can't be asked. And in the instance of the school I was working with, they had purchased a brand new building, and they didn't consult me or anybody knowledgeable on the area of what would be needed. And when we finally got down to the nitty gritty of it's going to be $60,000 in network infrastructure and $60,000 in AV infrastructure, they said, well, we don't have $120,000 in the budget for this. This is what we budgeted for. It's like, well, you didn't communicate, And a big thing on that is the learning curve there is how you work with those people when it happens. If you get angry about it, it's not going to do you or that other person any good, because they're just going to see, an angry elf,
Yeah.
as my wife and I like to say from Elf.
Yeah.
And the communication will really break down. But if you can come alongside them and say, okay, hey, while I understand you don't have the budget for it, this is not going to work. We don't have a lot of wiggle room, or find that wiggle room that you can. And building the trust and relationship with those people will help those people realize that all of us as IT people are actually assets. We're not just use cases. We're not just people that are filling small needs. We're actually there to really help an organization grow. And finding that, I keep saying, going back to that, making yourself valuable, and knowing that you have importance. Every single one of you has an importance, whether you found that or not. That could come down the line. If you know it now, even better. but I have no doubt that every single one of you has some importance in this room and can bring something of value to whatever organization you are with. No matter what, you think of yourself now, if you have your self-doubts, or, you're scared of your imperfections, embrace those imperfections, because I did.
Yeah.
And, being able to admit that there's so much that you don't know will help people to really encourage you to grow in those areas. And they're more willing to give you the tools to grow if you're willing to say, I don't know.
That's true. And one of the guys that mentored me years ago said, easy motto to follow, no surprises. If you know the server is going to crash, don't let it be a surprise. If the heartbeat has failed and the rollover is worked, and everything's still up and running, let management know that we need to roll it back once we get things fixed. So no surprises is a great way to keep yourself out of major trouble, because you can always put it in writing and say, I am letting you know that the disk is running at 98%. And we are very full on disk. And if we don't add disk to the partition, we are going to have some serious issues. Document it, send it to the boss. And he says, why do we need disk? I said, here, 98%. So
I encourage every single one of my employees, CYA. You guys all know what
Yeah.
that is, right? Anybody not know what CYA is?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
Cover your ass.
Oh,
cover your arse.
Cover your-
Yeah,
I'm allowed to say it, right? We're all
Yeah.
adults here.
yeah,
Yeah, cover your ass. Everything in writing.
Yep.
If one of my staff members calls, messages me and says, hey, I need you to help me with my time clock, send me an email. Because I'm not going to edit somebody's time clock without that, because, our Teams has a 30-day policy where, just it empties up our chat every 30 days. So, because if you need to keep something, you need to keep it in writing. So email, save the emails, back up your emails, cover your butt, because you may tell your supervisor, as much as I'd love to say there are some amazing supervisors, there's some horrible supervisors that will let the crap roll downhill.
Yeah.
And if you do not email them, and hey, BCC yourself, and then save your message, and makes it so much easier to find whatever you can do to make that message easily locatable in the future. Keep a folder on the side that you literally, file, save as on your Outlook or however you're going to save it. Export it. If it's a Gmail account, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You need to cover your butt,
Yeah.
because even managers make mistakes, and managers forget.
that's the big part.
Managers forget. Well, he was talking about ticketing. You know how many people walk up to me in the hall in a day? In 2 minutes, I could have 3 people as I'm walking through the hall. And I walk fast, usually because I'm trying to avoid those conversations, not that I want to avoid helping people, but that, it's hard because, when you're on task for an administrative thing and a resident needs to stop you. But if somebody comes up to me and tells me something, and 2 weeks later, I've had residents come up to me, hey, I never heard back from you. I'll admit, hey, I'm sorry, I forgot. I did ask you to put in a work order because I'm forgetful, because, I get 300 calls, emails, voicemails, texts, Teams a day. And, of course, even for my wife, she's like, hey, I need help in my classroom. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not your IT guy. Not that I don't want to
Tech
help.
support.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I don't know her system. But,
Get it.
we're all forgetful beings. And, that goes back to giving grace to your leadership too. If you tell them something verbally and they don't follow up because they forgot, it is on you, on us, to make sure to follow up with them and just say, hey, I'm just following up on this. There is
Yeah.
nothing wrong. And setting expectations, like I have my supervisor, then when it was the national director of IT, absolutely amazing. But the dude gets 300 emails a day. Easily, whether it's PRTG alerts saying the network's down, and he has to sift through all this stuff sometimes. So if I send him an email, just a one-off, and I don't hear back from him a week later, and it's not super time sensitive, it's not super important, but it's something that I want to follow up on, that communication of, hey, it's no rush, but I just like follow up, because we are,
as a manager, as a manager of people, I am a forgetful person and I will screw up. So giving them that same grace of, if somebody tells you something and you forget, you know, you hope somebody's gonna give you that same grace.
Yeah.
Or just walk by and say, put in a work order, put in a ticket.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do appreciate all you listening to my rambling here. I just- Yeah,